it's pretty safe to say, God give it, God take it away. It's the worldwide American way.
What's going on, team? Proof here, and for today's video I'm coming at you with how I did at ARG, the ARG Easter event that took place about, I want to say 3 weeks ago as of this video. And yeah, let's go ahead and hop into it. Nothing too crazy took place. So for the tournament structure, it was 35 players. Because of that, there were 6 rounds, best of 3, and then for ARG rules, it's kind of what Bushiroad has now implemented for their official rules, where you choose a random order, see who goes first or second. I think Bush also says winner of the random goes first, but for ARG, the winner of the random method chooses first or second, and then the loser of the previous round chooses the game order for the upcoming round. And for my deck that I used my version of Rising Dust that I featured in my week of videos, except that I took out Liar Lips and a Mecha Instructor for 2 more draw triggers. Excuse me. So I went against the Rainbow method and wanted to take in a couple more draws just for what I thought that I would expect to see, where I thought that having a couple more draws would be more necessary. But the rest of the deck remained the same from my videos. So you guys want to see how I did with that, I definitely recommend check out the week of videos that I put up featuring call it Dust and Haters, that series of videos. So for my first round, I went against Nubatama, and in game 1 my opponent G-assisted, but I didn't have the method of pieces in place to be able to capitalize on it, and I ended up losing before I was able to get my pieces together, because I had enough to go into Dust. Well, let me rephrase that. I went into Dust, but it was kind of a subpar Dust turn to where I didn't have all my pieces in place. So it was either go for it now or lose to Ren afterwards. So took the chances that I had and ended up losing because he ended up hitting a couple damage triggers, which definitely messed up my sequence of turns or my sequence of calls that I could make. So I ended up losing from that. And then in this game 2, I went first because I wanted to try and beat him with first try Dust before Ren could come down and just ruin my entire existence. But I wasn't able to go into Dust because I didn't get the pieces in time, but I was able to put together a Picaro sequence, which thanks to Jakido from my Discord server, he kind of talked about what he did, and I took those teachings and I applied it to my own game. I'm going to show that in the next slide, the formation that I put together. And in the third game, I went second because my opponent chose to go first because he wanted to G-guard into Ren, or have the chance to do so. But I had a nice sequence of draw triggers help my hand out and help pull pieces together. So then when he went into Ren, it wasn't enough to stop me from what I wanted to do. I ended up going into first try Dust after that and be able to win me the game. Or I can't remember, let's see, if he went first, that means I got first stride. So I was able to G-guard into Dust after that and was able to take the game. So I ended up winning that one 2-1 and made my overall record 1-0 going into the second round. And this is the quote-unquote Anti-Nubatama formation. So what it is since I guess it's Gyorakan, I think that's how you pronounce it, something like that, Gyorakan. It can only dominate something that's in the back row, and then it needs to be a grade 1. So if you have grade 0s in the back, it can't pick them. So the only choice that it had to make was to take the Tier back here, which I didn't mind too much because Tier already did his job on giving me counterblast or countercharging that I needed. So you set up front row Frog with the back row Instructor, and then if you have a Cunning Brain and Soul or already in the drop, you want to call out a Cunning Brain to the front row because you can Soul Blast 1 or 2 out with Tier or whatever is in there. So when you attack with Cunning Brain, he returns back to deck, and then you give power to Frog, which buffs him to 17k plus, and then you attack with Instructor, and then when Instructor returns to deck, you use his skill to bind and recall Great Star, and then you take the Great Star call Instructor, and then you loop that around until you're able to win the game. And thanks to this, if you check a crit, which I ended up doing against my opponent, you pass it off to Frog Raider. Now you have a 2 crit Frog Raider that can restand and attack multiple times in the turn. And it was really good. I got really fortunate there, and it worked. So shout out to Jakidos for giving me and us in the Discord the ideas surrounding it, and I was able to use it to perfection just because it helped me win me the game. Now, for game 2 or round 2, I went against Thavas, and in the first game, my opponent he was being more aggressive, and he was able to replace his units early. Like, he would call out a tidal assault, and I would attack it because you don't want to keep a tidal assault on the board. Or he would call out I can't remember the name of the other grade 2. I think he had that. Either way, he would be able to replace his units effectively just because that's how his draws came to him. And he still kept up the aggression to reduce my hand size down. So when I was able to go into Hellhard 8, I needed a draw trigger to be able to have enough aggression to get over what he had. But on his side, he had multiple damage triggers, so I ended up running out of steam before I was able to win the game. Ended up losing from there. And in game 2, I went first, and on his turn he set up his grade 1, then he had 2 7k grade 1s, and I didn't hit a damage trigger to help stop that momentum going. And by that time it was already too much. He already gathered too much from there, and it kind of just steamrolled from me. So I ended up losing that one 0-2, and ended up going 1-1 as of this time overall. In round 3, I went against Deletors, and against Deletors, you need to be careful how you progress through the game because you don't want to get blown out by a big given sequence before you're ready. So in the case of you going first, which means you get to ride the grade 3 first, chances are you want to give them no more than 3 damage, because when they have 3 damage, they can play Evo, and then with Evo they can call given, and then that way for 3 counter blasts, you set up their whole restanding sequence, which is bad for you. So in my opinion, if you have the G guards in place, don't give them more than 2 damage if you're going first, because you access your G guards, but you're more likely to not be in a place to where they have the given turn set up. I'd rather roll the dice on that than to give them 3 damage. Now you can argue you can do it because if you have a big stride sequence you can do off of G guards, it might be worthwhile to do it. So you kind of need to weigh the pros and cons of doing that. But if you're going second and they have the option to delete you as you're on grade 2, I would highly recommend not giving them damage before you get to grade 3, which means ride, pass or ride and attack a rear guard if they choose to be aggressive with it. Because what that does is it gives them no damage, and you can ride to grade 3 and stride and open up your G guards, which gives you a whole big advantage going against the leaders than you would if you chose to give them damage, which is what I did. Unfortunately, the leaders are so efficient with what they do and their top calls and give them so much advantage that I kind of got steamrolled from there. I did have a couple lucky moments with a 6 damage heal in game 2, but overall, excuse me, like his top calls would be very beneficial to him, like calling Efames or calling the other stand trigger that draws if your opponent's deleted, or getting Evo off of top, or getting another grade 3 to where he Soul Blast 2, now he had a 16k beater while I'm deleted. Just things like that. The deck's really efficient, so if you get unfortunate, if your opponent gets high quality calls off their top calls, it kind of just keeps going from there. So I ended up losing this round. I ended up losing 1-2, taking my overall record to 1-2 as well. And in the 4th round, I went against Harry. I don't remember too many details about it. I think in game 1, I went second, and I had the first stride, and he did his turn on his side, and I was able to G guard into Dust, and I took the game from there. And he wasn't playing the version of the deck that loops the grade 1 that lets you draw a card, so his hand wasn't as big. So Dust was able to get there for me. And in game 2, I pretty much remember game 2 with a lot of re-riding because I wanted to try to keep gathering pieces because I didn't want to take on him potentially having dust. So we played a grade 2 game for like 2 or 3 turns, and I ended up getting the pieces I needed to ride into Rise of Nova and attack him, and then double G guard into first try dust, and I ended up taking it 2-0, which made my overall record 2-2. And in round 5, I played against Regalia, and in game 1, my opponent messed up his soul by he selectively sold a non-Regalia unit, and he didn't have the exact number he needed to be able to use both of Minerva's strides or Minerva's skills. So when he tried to go for the restand or the restand in skill, he had 5 in soul that had Regalia, and that 6th one was his non-Regalia one, which I thought was Claimer Harry, I believe. And because of that, I was like, wait, don't you need to have all Regalia units? And he's like, oh yeah, and then realized that one non-Regalia messed him up. So I was able to G-guard into Hellheart 8, and I took the game from there. And in game 2, he put a big Earth on the board, which was attacking for like 76 and like 4 crit or something crazy like that. But thankfully I had all my 3 G-guards that I needed. And if you double G-guard into Linus plus Gase, that puts you at, I think, 106k shield value total, including your Vanguard power, which is too big for Earth to hit over. And then I went into Hellheart 8 after that, and I claimed me the game. So I won this one 2-0, made my overall record 3-2 going into the last round, which I needed to win it with. I think I needed to win to be able to guarantee that I was top 16. And I think I needed to win it 2-0 because of the system that went into it, because we used, I think, a magic system. So every game mattered. So trying to take ones 2-0 over 2-1 definitely mattered. And in the 6th round, I played against Altmile, and my opponent wasn't very aggressive, strangely, which gave me time. And since he wasn't aggressive, I didn't need to call out things and attack his pieces. So that's exactly what I did. And he strode into Luminous Hope and put like massive power on the ground, But I was able to double G guard, and I went into Picaro, and I had a similar Picaro sequence, except instead of having Frog in the front row, I had 2 frogs in the back, and I set up double Blackguards, and I was able to loop Blackguard and Great Star around to be able to attack and put like 26k, 31k columns together when his hand was low, and I was able to take the game from there. And in game 2, I ended up going first, so my goal was to go into first stride dust, and I ended up getting the pieces together, and I survived his first stride to go into dust, and then I claimed the game from there. So overall, it was 2-0 in result for me, and I ended up going 4-2. So I was excited because I knew that meant that I was able to qualify. And this is the sequence I was kind of talking about. Well, it was either double Blackguard, or instead of the Blackguard, you would call out the Cunning Brain instead. So there's a lot of formation you can do with double Frog that helps benefit you. But I ended up going 10th place overall. I got my invite to Philly. A lot of fun, a lot of really good games that I had going on. And the only deck change that I would make, if I was to make a change, was maybe I would play all 4 Mecha Instructor, because he's so important to my final combo that if I had 2 in hand, it kind of made it awkward because you didn't want to lose 1 to damage, and then I would have to use Gase to get 1 back into the deck where I didn't want to. So I would probably play all 4 stand triggers from there, and then manipulate the rest of my triggers on around that. Excuse me. So 10th place, I'm gonna be in Philly. I talked to my wife, she's excited. So hopefully we'll be able to meet some people down there. And yeah, that'll do it for me. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, see you when I get back. Until next time, peace, be easy.